Jason entered an intersection on a green light when another driver ran their red light and T-boned his Tesla at full speed. Jason made sure everyone was okay. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries. The other car was full of distracted teens who all started claiming that Jason had run a red light. The police arrived quickly at the collision scene. Instead of arguing with the teens, Jason showed his Teslacam footage to the officers and they quickly determined that the other driver was completely at fault. Jason's Model 3 was deemed a total loss, and he's in the process of purchasing another Tesla. Jason also mentioned that, for some reason, the side airbags on the Tesla didn't deploy. He tried reaching out to Tesla, but they said they'd only investigate if he had the car towed to a Tesla service center. His insurance provider towed the car to a junkyard instead, and since he wasn't hurt, he decided not to pursue it any further. He still wonders if the airbags failed or if the car intentionally didn't deploy them. What do you think? Let us know in a comment. Lee and his wife were driving their Model S on a highway in Basra, Connecticut, when an oncoming driver lost control and collided with the highway barrier. Lee's wife called the police right away, and they encountered police cars headed toward the scene just a few minutes later. Socket was driving in Austin, Texas, when out of nowhere, a GMC SUV overtook him and veered into the opposite lane at 50 miles per hour, well over the 35 mile per hour speed limit. The SUV collided with an oncoming Tesla Model 3. The GMC driver attempted to flee the scene, but he totaled his vehicle one street away before taking off on foot. Socket called 911 and first responders arrived within about 10 minutes. There were no street cameras that captured the incident, but Socket was able to provide the police with the video evidence recorded by his Model 3's cameras, which proved immensely valuable. There were 4 people in the Tesla, and they were all shaken up and unable to recall the exact details of the incident. Thankfully, none of them were injured. The rear end of the Model 3 was completely destroyed along with the rear axle, preventing the wheels from turning at all. John had parked his Tesla Model 3 while he was visiting the beach. When he came back to his car, he found broken glass and this Sentry mode footage. A family had pulled up and parked in front of his Tesla. While the father of the year got out to smash his window, his little kid watched everything from the passenger seat. The man smashed the window but didn't take anything before rushing back to his car and taking off, leaving John with a $500 repair bill. Honestly, we feel sorry for the kid. That family must be going through rough times if they think this behavior is appropriate. Silicon Dom was driving in Chicago, Illinois one night when he suddenly witnessed a massive lightning strike.
Kapow!
This video from Eric shows a serious incident of road rage. Out of nowhere, a Honda driver launched an unprovoked attack. Eric sent us a ton of footage leading up to the incident, and we combed through it all. This is the first frame where the Honda is visible, so there's no earlier interaction that might have provoked what happened next. Eric was driving back home in Bellevue, Washington, and was behind a bus when 2 Teslas started passing him. Right behind them was the Honda. When they pulled up to a red light, Eric happened to stop next to the Model Y with the Honda right behind it. When the light turned green, everyone proceeded completely normally. The Honda driver began driving very closely next to Eric, and he had no idea what his intentions were. The Honda driver backed off a bit before activating his turn signal, but Eric had no way of seeing that he wanted to merge into his lane since this happened in Eric's blind spot. There was plenty of room for the Honda to merge behind Eric, but the Honda driver continued alongside him with his turn signal on. When they pulled up to the next red light, the Honda driver stopped next to Eric and the driver leaned over to open his passenger door. We have no idea why he did this, but that's when the light suddenly turned green. Eric made a right turn, and so did the Honda driver, from the left lane. The Honda driver was now driving next to Eric but headed the wrong way. He then started honking and tried to cut Eric off. Eric told us he accelerated in an attempt to get away from the Honda, worried he was going to do something stupid. Eventually, he managed to cut in front of Eric, then blocked his path and jumped out of his car. Eric quickly started backing up before the guy walked over and punched Eric's window. Eric pulled around the Honda and took off, but not before stopping to throw a water bottle at it. The Honda driver continued to follow Eric until realizing that he was leading him to a police station. Eric wanted to ask our viewers what could have possibly triggered the Honda driver's road rage. Let him know your theory in a comment. Nick was driving home at around 10 p.m. after working late. An extreme weather warning had been issued due to a downpour of rain and hail. Nick had stopped on the shoulder under an overpass to wait for the weather to calm down. Other drivers were also stopping, some of them in the middle of the road. Nick began driving again after the rain began to ease up. Not long after, he drove right through a huge puddle. Nick pointed out that, although we can see the puddle in the Teslacam video, he couldn't see it while driving due to poor visibility. When he hit the puddle, a huge amount of water was thrown everywhere and strange sounds began coming from the front of his Model Y. The fans were making a horrible noise and he knew something was very wrong. When he got home and inspected his car, he noticed the front skid plate was missing and the passenger side trim was falling off. Nick immediately scheduled a Tesla service appointment, but replacing the skid plate cost him $240 US. This submitter and her friend were heading home from Pittsburgh in her Tesla. While driving down Highway 376, they felt an impact from the rear and discovered that a silver vehicle had rear-ended them. The driver of the silver vehicle then fled the scene. Concerned for their safety, they decided not to pursue the driver and instead called the police. After making a police report, officers assured them they'd be able to track down the driver since they could identify the license plate number of the silver vehicle from their Teslacam footage. Our submitter is still awaiting a repair estimate to get her Tesla fixed. Patty Joe captured this daytime meteor near the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. They look so much cooler in the daytime. Tat and his son were on their way to a bike park in Thailand when they saw a BMW in front of them swerve to the left to avoid something in the road. When they got closer, they saw a huge monitor lizard in the road. Tat's son immediately told him to send his Teslacam footage to Wham Bam Teslacam. Thanks! Now we'll have a record proving the origin of the next Godzilla attack. Jonathan was merging onto a highway when he suddenly felt an impact, shoving him onto the highway before he was hit again by the same car. A Prius driver had sideswiped him, then came back and hit him again. The Prius driver then took off, making it a hit and run. Jonathan called 911 and reported the collision. The Prius's license plate was captured, and the Prius shows up on Carfax as having a salvage title after over 250,000 miles. With that kind of driving, that's no surprise. Raul and Janice were driving in San Bernardino, California when they noticed two cops pulling over a modified Honda. The Honda driver tried to pull over, but the cops told him to keep going. When they reached the split in the highway, the cops quickly turned off their lights and merged one way, leaving the Honda to go down the other highway. Raul told us it seemed like the cops were messing with the Honda driver and made him take the wrong highway. They were laughing when it looked like the Honda driver would now be stuck in heavy traffic. What do you think? Was this just a prank, bro? Howe was driving down a highway in Los Angeles, California. Traffic was moving slowly after police shut down the express lane due to a collision. As they passed it, the driver of a truck didn't see Howe's Tesla and merged into his lane, colliding with the rear of his car. The impact actually lifted the front end, but the Tesla stood its ground. I'm going to assume that the police responded very quickly to the scene. Roger was driving his Model Y in White Oak, Texas, when he spotted something odd. A lady was walking her dog while driving a Honda Fit. That doesn't seem safe at all. Phildub was on a family trip in Manhattan over a long weekend. As they approached an intersection that seemed strangely busy, they noticed lots of people standing around and waiting near the Peninsula Hotel. As they drove by, Phildub recognized on the left, wearing a pink suit and taking photos with fans outside of the hotel. Now that I think about it, a silent Tesla covered in cameras is the perfect paparazzi vehicle. I think it's time for another giveaway. Do you know who this is? Post your guess in a comment, and if you're right, you'll be entered to win a Wham Bam hoodie. Phildub is actually one of our Patreon supporters, for which we are supremely grateful. Your support keeps this show on the road. If you want to sign up and get access to exclusive perks, check out our campaign at the link in the description.